Welcome back to another episode of ACX University. I'm Hannah Wall. One of my favorite narrators said, "Nobody falls on the mountaintop. Success leaves tracks." After all, everybody has to start somewhere. But what does the mountaintop look like for a high-performing audiobook narrator? Success in this field transcends performance. The best of the best combine great sound with dynamic marketing and a great slate of projects to reach the halls of the golden voices. In today's episode, we'll show you, with the help from some of the industry's brightest, how some subtle transformations and an investment in yourself can lead to a meaningful, lucrative career as an audiobook narrator. Meet Christian Drerup, a classically trained actor who's just added audiobook performance to her repertoire. She's been performing audiobooks for about a year, but she's looking to take it to the next level. I'm joined by 3 audiobook pros: Audible Hall of Fame narrator and performance coach PJ Ochlan, Audible approved producer and career coach Jeffrey Kafer, and our home studio building pro George Whittam, aka George the Tech. Together, they'll show Christian and you at home how to advance your audiobook production career and how small wins can ladder up to big successes.
Hi, I'm Christian Drerup, and I've been living on the West Coast for about 10 years, originally from Louisiana. And I'm an actress who's trying to get into narrating audiobooks more. My biggest strengths as a producer are that I'm an actress, so I understand the storytelling process, and I love a good story. The performance aspect comes pretty naturally. My biggest concerns that I want to work on are being more invested in the material in a way that you can hear on playback, because sometimes I feel like I'm connected, and then listening back, it doesn't sound like I'm in it, and I want that to be very seamless. The way I created my recording space was by watching videos online, ACX videos, and then looking at pictures of setups and just getting in the closet and hanging up blankets and moving stuff around until I had something workable. My ACX profile, I would say, is okay. I'm getting good responses sometimes, but not consistently, and I don't know if that's more the auditioning or the profile, but I would like to know that my profile is really, really great. A successful audiobook career, to me, would be doing the types of books that I want to be doing and having enough work to where I don't feel like I'm always scrambling for a job, and having the confidence knowing that I can do a really good book and have a great finished product.
To start the day, I'm introducing Christian to our first pro, George Whittam, who's here to transform her recording space from a cramped closet into a clean recording studio.
I'm coming in to make sure that your studio sounds amazing and looks amazing too, because while you've got a completely functional studio you've been working in for years, my job is to just take that to another level.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do today.
Great.
What are you
I'm
expecting?
excited.
Yeah, what do you expect is going to happen today?
I expect it to be better than what I have.
What do you think is better?
Better, I would say more sound absorption. Sometimes it feels like you can tell I'm in a closet when I listen back.
Right.
Also just more functional, like even just moving this stuff a little bit, it all kind of started to tumble over.
Yeah, right.
Because I don't know anything about this, so it's all just kind of crammed in there.
What are some of the challenges then you're facing with the current setup?
I would say that the functionality of it, like we just talked about, and
does it feel like you're always going to knock into something?
Yes.
If you move just a little, it's
it's very
bump
cramped in there, and I have to set it up just right and then kind of like squeeze myself in there and try not to mess it up or touch anything that's gonna mess it up. And then the equipment, I don't know anything about technical stuff. So if I'm hearing something in the audio, I don't know if it's the mic, I don't know if it's the cord, I don't know how to tell.
So you're having an occasional, random weirdnesses, glitches,
like
noises.
sometimes there's a buzz
what is
underneath.
That? Yeah.
Yes, and sometimes it's not there. So I haven't been able to figure out what that is.
Gotcha, okay.
So what's the best advice for setting up a home studio to record in?
Well, I mean, you can start by improvising with what you have, which is clearly what you've done here, and to pretty good effect, right? So that's cool. But you do have to make sure that the space you're in hopefully doesn't sound like a closet. It's the illusion that you're in this amazing sounding space, this amazing studio, which with some of the right techniques, the acoustical panels we're gonna put in there today will be able to to make this sound more like a studio. It's going to sound acoustically better. And that's one of those hard things that's hard to quantify. You have to hear the before and the after, which will make sure people get to hear what the differences are. But when it's all done, it's going to sound like a studio more so than before. Nice. And then the rest of it is just the right gear for the job. And again, we're just going to take what you've already got and just kind of upgrade everything a step, a notch. But you don't have to spend thousands. You know, we're going to be using very reasonably priced equipment, but setting it up so that it's reliable. And then the last thing that's always a challenge is the computer. The computer is a big thing, right? That's the center of your studio. Oftentimes you read script from it, not always, but it's also where you're recording. And so for this project, we've decided to put a new computer in there that's totally silent. That's awesome. It has no fan. You're never going to hear the thing making noise or start to make more noise throughout the day. No hard drive, no moving parts, totally solid state. And it's a tablet as well, so you can, if you choose to read script off the screen, you'll be able to do that.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I didn't know that was can get a pen and update script. You can make little corrections on the screen. There's a lot of things that you can do. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, surprise.
That's really exciting, yeah.
That's happening. So these are some of the things that you can do to take a functional studio and make it more efficient, more functional.
Okay. So what are some common mistakes that people make when they're setting up a home studio?
Common mistakes. I mean, one of them would definitely be trying to set up in like their living room or their dining room, some big open space. While it's a comfortable place to record, it is so easily affected by outside noise. You know, when you're in a big open room with lots of windows, obviously noises are going to distract you. And the more interruptions, the slower your production, and you're going to get frustrated. So that's the biggest mistake. And then other things that people do wrong would be like maybe using the wrong kind of mic. Maybe they'll use a mic that is more suitable for broadcasting or podcasting. And then the last thing is they don't acoustically treat their space well.
So if you're on a budget, which I am, what's the best thing to invest in, and where's the best place to put your money?
Yeah. Assuming you can find somewhere quiet in your home, which is, and we're in Los Angeles, not as hard as say New York City, but still it's a consideration. Hopefully you've been lucky enough to find somewhere a little bit off the major street. So if you've gotten that, if you're lucky with that, then it's just making sure that acoustically the space sounds great. If we get rid of all the acoustical issues, then you can almost use any microphone within reason and get good sound quality. So if they get that right, then the rest of it is just basic items. I mean, you can actually get a USB microphone that's in the $100 range that will do the job. It's not my first choice. I tend to like to have a mic that's separate from the interface because it's easier to upgrade later. But you know, it's just a quiet computer, something reliable, a reasonably priced mic, a decent pair of headphones so you can, when you're editing, you can really hear the detail of what's there. Those are the really key things. And then the software. And software can be everywhere from free Audacity to Pro Tools and everything in between.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of options out there. You just sort of pick one that's within your budget and start learning it.
Yeah. All right, I'm really excited to see what you're gonna do. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna give you some space and...
We're ready to go. Yeah, I've got another guy along with me, Corey, who's actually the guy that made the acoustical panels we'll be installing. He's going to be here to help me too. So between the two of us, it's a small space. So hide in another room while we start getting into the mess.
Okay, I can't wait to see it.
I think her space is a usable space. I've actually worked with smaller spaces than this, believe it or not, shallower, smaller closets. So she has enough space, especially once we clear the shelving out of here, which is a bit of a surprise for her. She didn't know we were going to be doing this. Once we knock those shelves out, this space will feel a lot more comfortable for her, a lot less claustrophobic. So it's really not too bad. And these old houses with these heavy plaster walls, they're pretty darn quiet inside. So she's got a pretty good situation.
While George gets to work on the closet demolition, I've invited Audible Hall of Famer PJ Ochlan to give Christian a performance tune-up. Let's listen in.
All right, so we're together again for a little bit of performance coaching. Now we have a new piece, right? So this is really, really awesome. Before we go into it, I know you've had a little bit of time to look over it. Tell me what you think about it and your ideas for it.
Yeah, it's a YA for sure, a 16-year-old girl who has a good relationship with her older sister sometimes. Other times it's very competitive. And you know how it goes, and it's first person. It's from her perspective.
Yep. So cool, awesome. Whenever you're ready, take it away, and I might stop you at certain points. You know, otherwise we'll just get a good chunk out and take it from there.
Sounds good.
All right, when you're ready.
It seemed unfair spending 3 hours a day in a classroom during summer, only to wait another 30 minutes in the parking lot. There were things I could do about that, like walk home or tell my parents my older sister was always late to pick me up. But either of those would inevitably lead to an argument or two. Dad would yell at Tiffany. Tiffany'd take her punishment out on me.
Good. Let me stop you there. Good. This is really, really nice. You have a great voice for this kind of thing. Really perfect. Well suited to this kind of a piece.
Cool.
But we have a cool advantage right now because we're together on a sofa as opposed to in a booth on talkback and all that.
Yeah.
Right? So the same way we're talking to each other right now, I want you to try to bring that to the piece. In other words, present less and just give it to me real more.
Okay.
Try that again, just from the top. Really like it's just you and me on the couch.
Okay.
Let's use this to our advantage.
Sure. It seemed unfair spending 3 hours a day in a classroom during summer, only to wait another 30 minutes in the parking lot. There were things I could do about that, like walk home, or tell my parents my older sister was always late to pick me up. But either of those would inevitably lead to an argument or two. Dad would yell at Tiffany. She'd take her punishment out on me. It wouldn't do much good now anyway, with only 2 days of summer school left. I hadn't gotten my license yet, so what right did I have to complain? Instead, I did what I had every other afternoon and took out one of the books I needed to read before summer ended.
Awesome. Let's pause there and go back a little bit. I want to go back over some of this stuff.
Okay,
Good.
yeah.
Definite improvement from where we started based on what we talked about.
Okay.
More of that personal human-to-human connection. Remember, for an audience of one, keep it real. You know, it's the intimacy factor is important, right? But I
Yeah.
really want to get the sense of like we're talking to each other right now. It's not for
Right.
like, you know, the audience a few rows away or anything like that. It really is this level of intimacy. So, you know, bring it down and really, really keep focusing on just talk to PJ, right? Like
Okay.
just tell me the story. Like
Yeah.
almost like, you know, it's written in past tense. We can almost imagine that after the fact, you're just telling me what happened this morning when your sister
Yeah.
didn't pick you up on time from school. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
Another thing that I want to just touch on now before we start going back into it, so I'll give you two notes at the same time. The other is, how does she feel about this stuff? You know, one of the ways we can avoid having it all start to sound the same is really that connection to the material that you and I have talked about before. But here, that's a really, really super big deal. It's first person. In this case, it really is like this book-length internal monologue by a real person, right?
Yeah.
So you really have to be connected to her and her feelings. And when you are, all of a sudden, we don't have any sense of monotony because things are occurring to you in the moment, right?
Yeah.
You're just telling me how your day went, or little moments like where she said, I hadn't gotten my license yet, so what right did I have to complain? Let's think about that line for 1 second. Does she mean that literally?
Or just what other people would say she's supposed to feel.
In which case, there's that element of maybe a tiny bit of snark, or just like,
Right.
so what right did I have to complain, right? You know, like that's what they're going to say, so I better just sit here and deal with it, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff, you know, really that connection. So what I'd like to do is go from the top again, but with those two adjustments, right?
Okay.
That real connection to how does she feel in these moments as she's, you know, reliving or even turning it into, in your brain, present tense, experiencing it in the moment, and also just that intimacy of you just telling me.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, cool.
So go for it. Really good, by the way.
Oh, thank you. It seemed unfair spending 3 hours a day in a classroom during summer, only to wait another 30 minutes in the parking lot. There were things I could do about that, like walk home or tell my parents my older sister was always late to pick me up. But either of those would inevitably lead to an argument or two. Dad would yell at Tiffany. She'd take her punishment out on me. It wouldn't do much good now anyway, with only 2 days of summer school left. I hadn't gotten my license yet, so what right did I have to complain? Instead, I did what I had every other afternoon and took out one of the books I needed to read before summer ended. Some pages later, Tiffany came around the corner screeching to a stop at the curb. "Get in," she said, as if I were making her late for something, even though I'd done nothing but wait in that same spot for 45 minutes. "Come on, hurry up." Gainfully unemployed, my 19-year-old sister lived at home, ate mom and dad's food, and had an allowance my dad constantly threatened to cut off. She had one job only: take me to and from school. Rolling through stop signs on the drive home, she explained the rush. "If Brad calls, I don't want to miss it. I've been waiting for ages for him to ask me out." It would have been easy not to care what she was driving 15 miles over the speed limit. The windows were down, the breeze warm, and there were still 6 weeks left of summer. But Tiffany knew better. "You're going to get pulled over and Dad'll take your car away," I said. "Maybe for a day, but I'd get it back." "Can't you just call Brad and ask him out?" "Not unless I want to look desperate," she said with an air of knowing, as if she were imparting wisdom. In a way, she was. I had no idea about these things. "You want to watch music videos later?" "I have reading to do." "You've been reading or doing homework all summer," she said. "Your class is practically over. Relax." University of Southern California wasn't looking for relaxed students. According to Dad, summers were for weeding out the lazy kids, like my friends who were probably at the beach. "I will, in 2 days."
Use that paragraph to, again, tap into how you feel about it. Go back to University of Southern California.
Okay.
Good, excellent. A little bit of like starting to go in that other direction again, which is why I want to get you back on track. That was really awesome, though. Good distinction between the characters. It's very clear when, her sister is speaking as opposed to when she is. Stay connected, though, to how you feel about stuff.
Okay.
That's the key, right? That's where we find all that variation. That's where we get that real thing. And remember, just to me.
Okay.
Just me.
I struggle between finding the medium there, between like keeping it intimate, but also
Emoting.
in a sense.
I know that can be
know?
tricky, but even like when we talk about this now, like I'm really into what I'm talking to you about, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be over the top. So same idea.
Okay.
Just like this.
Because if you're invested, it won't be forced.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the thing. And you can infuse everything you do creatively with energy, but understand that there's a difference between energy and size. So I want you energized. I want you in it. But that doesn't mean it's like big, crazy, over the top, lady.
Right, right.
There's like a difference
Huge.
between the two. It's not about
Okay.
size, it's about connection. And that connectivity comes from that energetic, passionate involvement.
Yeah.
Like right now. I mean, you care about what I'm saying because I care about what I'm saying, right? And that's not to say you didn't care about what you were reading. Obviously you did. But that's where I think the question you're asking about finding that balance, I think that's what it comes down to. If you're really invested in what it's like to inhabit her, live her life, and be in those moments, you can be sitting with me on the couch telling the story and then carry that over to the booth experience, where it's just there. That's what I mean about intimacy. It's not about you're going to whisper the material or it's got to be, super tiny or anything like that. No.
Just not huge.
Yeah, and not presented. I think that's the difference. Performed,
Yeah.
exactly. The reality we want of really being connected to the material. It always comes back to that. In coaching and all this stuff, and you've heard, from many sources, I know as you've been like building your career in this work, tons and tons of different opinions on creative work. That's why none of it is gospel. But I think you will find that there is one recurring theme, which is connection to the material, right? So I paused you there. I want to pick up from the same spot, okay? So just from that University of Southern California, and then we'll get to like the top of the next page.
Okay.
But keep that in mind. Just, again, more of that you and me thing. It doesn't separate it from she's a 16-year-old girl telling her story, but I just want that sense of we're just hanging out on the couch.
Yeah.
A little bit more of that and less of I'm playing to a crowd.
Okay, got it. University of Southern California wasn't looking for relaxed students. According to Dad, summers were for weeding out the lazy kids, like my friends who were probably at the beach. "I will, in 2 days." "Then we should do something this weekend. Something cheesy, like the Fun Zone at Balboa. Get some ice cream bars like we used to when we were kids." One thing about Tiffany, I could never predict.
Tell me about Tiffany.
One thing about Tiffany, I could never predict what she'd say next.
That was it. That's exactly it. Did you feel the difference? Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Did you feel it?
Yeah.
Like, that's gold right there.
Yeah,
That's
not
simple
putting
little
it
adjustment.
on.
Yes.
Yeah.
That thing, when you just all of a sudden that shift from all right, one thing about Tiffany.
Yeah,
never
one
predict-
thing about Tiffany.
Exactly. That's the difference.
Yeah.
One thing about Tiffany, that's not to me, right?
Right.
But that second version was gold. Keep going. Just the top of this next bit so
Okay.
we hear from the dude.
With an eye roll,
Nope. To me.
With an eye roll, she turned up the radio for Runaway Train and sang all the way home. She parked along the curb of our cul-de-sac, close to the next door lot where they were doing construction. One of the hard-hatted men whistled at us. "Hey, Blondie." Tiffany looked through her windows. "What?" "Come here a sec."
Okay, cool. Let's go back and do that little piece again, just from one of the hard-hatted men whistled at us.
Okay.
Now, there's an interesting little punctuation thing there. This is a nitpick on my part, but it's still kind of important when we talk about author's intent. What do you
Yeah.
see in that bit of
"Hey, Blondie."
bingo and
Periods.
why? Periods, exactly right. So be careful. Again, it's a nitpick. I mean, maybe, a proofer might bust you for something like that, turn it into a pickup, might
Yeah.
let it slide because it's within dialogue. But we do know the
fair.
author's intent. The author specifically wanted, hey, Blondie.
Right.
Right. So we got to honor that if we're aware.
Okay.
That's good. But also, since we're on the topic and we're pausing, and we'll wrap up with this little section here because we get to hear from him. But with that, also make him more real too.
Okay.
And he's, we don't quite know him yet, and obviously you haven't prepped the whole book in this case.
Right.
But for our purposes, make a choice about what he's like.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's a cat caller, but keep him real. Right?
Yeah.
So let's take it back to one of the hard-hatted men.
Okay. One of the hard-hatted men whistled at us.
Hold on, even that line, just to me.
Okay. One of the hard-hatted men whistled at us. "Hey, Blondie." Tiffany looked through her window. "What?" "Come here a sec."
When Tiffany, what we know about Tiffany so far, when she says what do you think Tiffany's intent is behind that what?
Flirting.
Okay. So maybe there's a little, what could
Yeah.
you do, vocally speaking, what could you do to maybe make it sound a little flirtier?
I don't know, throw some snark in it?
Maybe. What might indicate something to...
Smiling?
Bingo.
Okay.
Now, let's just try it. Maybe throw a little bit of a smirky smile under it, because in
Yeah.
all likelihood, I'm going to hear that smile.
Right.
And I'd like to.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of cool. And with him, I would bring it down even a little bit further. It's vocally, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't want a caricature. I want a real guy.
Okay.
So take that back. Same spot. Let's just do that section again.
Okay. One of the hard-hatted men whistled at us. "Hey, Blondie." Tiffany looked through her window. "What?" "Come here a sec."
Cool. All right. Pause there. Especially the Chimera sec. That to me was real.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Blondie, I might have still tweaked slightly, but the Chimera sec,
Yeah.
did that feel a little different?
It did, yeah.
Like
yeah.
a little bit more like...
Sometimes I can't really feel it until I'm listening back to it,
Yeah.
and then I go, "Oh,
Well, that's the purposes of this, though, right?
Right,
Because
to
then,
learn.
and it also shows the value of having that extra set of ears, because you don't always have me there or any of us there or
Right.
a director or an engineer to have that second set of ears and say, hey, maybe try this,
Yeah.
right? So that's part of it, and that's why this I think is so valuable in that self-engineering, self-directing world that you're going to be in, and
Yeah.
have already been in with your ACX work,
Right.
and again with others. That's a really important skill that's part of the job. All right, cool. How'd that feel?
good overall."
Yeah,
Yeah. In
awesome.
the beginning, it was a little.
But it got
rocky,
better, right?
But yeah.
That's what's awesome.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the whole point. So good.
Yeah.
Good on you.
While Christian keeps working on her performance, I'm checking back in with George to see how the remodel of the closet is going.
Well done, dude. Nice fit. It's actually going pretty well. We've had a few obstructions along the way because of the size of the space, and also we are using a standardized size panel mostly. It's 24 inches wide. The closet is 24 and a half inches wide. So everything's a very tight squeeze. There are also brackets on the walls from the old shelving units. All of that had to come out. So it took a little while to clear the closet and prep it, but that was really the hard work here. And the rest of it is, we're at that point now where we're literally hanging the panels on the wall. So it's actually coming together pretty well. Next is getting that final panel on the wall, because everything else is up. Then bringing in a work surface, a little table we've gotten just to squeeze into this tiny space because it's small. And we put our microphone up, we put the computer up, put the mic up. I mean, we're like an hour away from having a working studio, so we're there, we're real close.
Next up, I've asked audiobook mentor and career coach Jeffrey Kafer to sit down with Christian to put together a long-term strategy for her performing portfolio.
All right, so this should be a good productive session.
Yeah.
What did you want to talk about?
I would love to learn different ways that I can take my audiobook career to the next level.
Okay.
In terms of business kind of stuff, like
Sure.
ACX profile, networking,
Okay.
etc.
Let's talk first. How's your portfolio of books looking?
I would say it's all right.
Okay.
I've done 6 different books, romance, and also some nonfiction.
Okay.
Nothing horrendous, but the first few that I did, listening back, it like makes me cringe. The material isn't bad, just me doing it, I'm judging it.
Yeah, and that's okay. You're going to cringe at some of the first books you do, and that's fine. However, that is part of the reason it's important to be very choosy about the kinds of books you do in the beginning, from the very beginning. The number one pitfall I see from people is that they do every book that comes their way. They love the idea, oh my God, I got a book offer. I'm so thrilled. Yeah, okay, but it's really important to remember that this book is going to be online for sale for 7+ years with your name attached.
Right.
So if you're doing all stuff like cookbooks, travelogues, little 30-minute biographies of Joe Blow, famous person, you're basically telling anybody who's looking you up on Audible that that's the kind of book you want to do,
Okay.
right?
So be choosy from the get-go instead of
Absolutely.
picking something because you'll use it as practice.
Correct.
Because you can't just make it go away.
Yeah.
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 What are the things that a narrator can do who's relatively new to develop an online presence in terms of website
Yeah.
or profiles?
Right. Since most new narrators are going to try to get work on ACX, having a rock-solid ACX portfolio is critical importance. And what I mean by that is having a variety of samples, not too many. 6 is usually a good number.
Okay.
Of the genres that you want to narrate for. Now, the number one thing I see people do wrong is that they'll have their sample, and their sample will be titled the name of the book. That is meaningless information, unless the person looking at it has read the book. Instead, I recommend people use descriptive words as the title. First person, thriller, male-female dialogue, chase scene.
Yeah.
So give somebody who's looking at your portfolio, give them the information they want in that big, bold headline so they know right away what to zero in on. If I wrote a thriller that's written first person, has male-female dialogue, and a chase scene, guess what I'm going to look at? The other problem is people have too many samples, I think, in which case the rights holder's like, whoa, overwhelmed. You know, you don't need 5 different thriller samples.
Okay.
And you don't have to be a jack of all trades. You don't have to do every genre. If thrillers aren't your thing, don't fake it. Don't put up thrillers, because that's not what you want to be narrating anyway.
Yeah.
Stick with what you want to do. Play to your strengths. What you want to do is less important than what you're good at. What I've discovered over the years is that what I want to do is not exactly relevant to what I get cast as. I do mostly science fiction and romance. Guess what 2 genres of books I never read when I was a kid?
Yeah.
Most people want to drive their own casting. It doesn't really work that way. Somebody's going to hear something in your voice and like, oh, you'd be great for romance, even though you're doing a YA sample,
Right.
right? So play to what you think your strengths are, but don't put yourself in an artificial box because somebody may see something. And this goes to the idea of branding.
Yeah. Is that important?
No, it's not, because
Okay.
you don't get to define what your brand is. Your brand is you're an audiobook narrator, you're trustworthy, you turn your stuff in on time, and you deliver a quality product. That is the brand that should be associated with any audiobook narrator.
Okay.
Let them decide what genres you fall into for them.
Okay. And then in terms of networking and being in the right situations to meet the right people, what's your advice on that?
Go to networking events, mixers, what have you, conferences. Go there to make friends. You don't go there to network. You don't need an elevator pitch. Go there to meet new people whom you have not met before and become friends with them.
Right.
Because who do you want to work with? You want to work with your friends.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about. So you don't have to have an elevator pitch. You don't have to go and introduce yourself as a narrator. I'm a narrator and I do why. They know you're a narrator.
Right, if it's a function for narrators.
That's why you're there.
Yeah.
Instead, go there and get to know these people. We're in an age of social media where people barf up all of their interests on social media.
Yeah.
You can find out pretty much anything about people. So I like to give
stalking them.
I like to give homework. I say, okay, you're going to APAC, which is the Audiobook Publishers Association conference in New York in May every year. That's the big one that everybody goes to make friends.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I give people homework. Say, find 5 publishers whom you do not currently work for. Find out who the people are that are casting.
Okay.
And get to know some things about them that you can bring up in a conversation. People talk about this stuff on social media. You don't want to be the most interesting person in the room. You want to be the most interested.
I like that. How often should I be auditioning, and what types of books should I be auditioning for? How do I decide?
Okay, so you want to audition. This goes back to the portfolio thing.
Okay.
You want to be auditioning for books that represent who you are as a narrator. Okay. Now we're talking again, this is building a portfolio. Okay. Because that's where you're still at. You're building a portfolio to get more work. Okay. The interesting thing about the kinds of books to audition for is, since these books represent you, you want to look at it visually. Cover is king.
Okay.
And that seems so backward, right? These are
Right.
audiobooks. What does the cover matter?
Yeah.
People shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Well, they do, otherwise books wouldn't have covers. So more importantly, they're judging you by the cover of the book.
Okay.
Okay? So there's a lot of factors that play into that. What's the rate? You want to keep your rate high for yourself so that you can produce the book properly, outsourcing your editing and proofing.
Is there a rate that I shouldn't go below? Is that person specific, or would you say, when
Well-
you said keep your rates high?
Okay. It's not specific to the narrator. There are industry standard rates.
Okay.
For example, the union rate is $250 per finished hour or more. Whether a narrator is union or not, it's good for the industry to keep those rates high. There is no such thing as a new narrator rate. That's a common problem that people run into. I'm a new narrator, so I shouldn't be charging.
That's what I
$250.
thought. Yeah.
No, that's not the way it works. If you're right for the book, you should be charging the full rate. It doesn't matter how many books you have under your belt. Union rate or minimum established industry rate is a floor, not a ceiling.
Right.
So you should start at $250 per finished hour, and as you get better and can command higher rates, feel free to go up from there.
Okay.
But if you're doing books at $50 a finished hour because you think you're not worth it, well, there's a reason that the industry has established those rates. There is no new narrator rate.
At what point does it make sense to start outsourcing the editing, mastering?
Right. Book 1.
Okay. From the beginning.
That's a really hard nugget for a lot of people to swallow because a lot of times their first book is a royalty share book and they're not guaranteed to make that money back. You got to change your mindset in that case. You're starting a business. Every business has startup capital. Consider the costs of producing the book really well as part of your startup capital. You don't want to release a shoddy product from the beginning
Just to save money.
just to save
Yeah.
a couple of bucks. So set your business up for success from the very beginning.
Okay, yeah. Is there a point at which you've graduated from ACX and you've moved on to publishers?
No, there isn't. You don't graduate from ACX. You don't say goodbye and move on. The savvy narrator uses ACX as a tool in their toolbox. I've done 600 books. I'm still working ACX. I did one last week.
Wow. So it's not a stepping stone. It's something to use throughout a career.
It can be a first step to getting in and building a portfolio and starting to make the contacts and getting experience, but there's no reason why you would leave it behind.
Okay.
Why turn down good money?
Yeah. How do you stay motivated when you're maybe not getting the work that you want or things aren't exactly
Yeah.
panning out?
The idea behind that is you want to continually be working.
Okay.
And that seems counter to what you just asked. But what I mean by that is always do something every day to further your career. It's also a good time to pick out some royalty share books and do those.
So put the research into figuring out which royalty share books are worth doing. That's
Or have some royalty share books already in your queue. Fill your time with, well, I have a week here, no books that are paying. I have this royalty share book that I need to do. I'm gonna do it this week. I have nothing else going on. My mantra is always be working.
Christian's on her way with an updated ACX profile and a strategy for building her audiobook credits. And it looks like George is just about done with the closet remodel. Time for the big reveal.
All right, Christian, if you're ready to see your new room, here's George.
Okay. Can I take it off?
Take my hand.
Okay.
So I'm gonna walk you right to the door. And now you can take off your blindfold.
Okay.
Take a look inside your newly remade studio.
Oh,
Ta-da!
just looks-wise, it's so good. There's not old crummy blankets on the walls anymore. Wow.
Does it look
The
like you could get
whole
some work done
setup.
in there?
Yes.
It's, there's more things in there than you had before, right?
Yes.
Because now you're going to be able to control your computer while you're recording. You're going to be able to start learning the punch and roll, which will make you more productive. And so to be able to do that, it requires a bit more stuff in there, but we fit it in there. I think it feels pretty good.
Yes, it does. Because
Yeah.
I don't mind being in a small space. I
Good.
just need everything to,
Because that's what you got.
Right. I just need everything to be where it's supposed to be, and I know that it's going to work.
Right. So for you, we've got an assortment of some of the best gear out there, but at a reasonable budget. And the centerpiece, of course, is the mic. So for that, I've chosen a microphone that is a large diaphragm condenser mic, which is what most narrators are going to choose to use. This one, because it is more tonally in balance with female voices, I went with this mic. In other words, what that means is with a mic, when you have a voice that's of a higher range or has some sibilance, this mic will sort of help smooth that out. So it's not boosting things it doesn't need to boost. And then it also has switches on it that will remove low end or low cut. So if there's noise, like really low frequency stuff, the mic will filter that out before it even goes into the computer. So when you start editing, the noise floor will look quiet. You won't have like this wavy, jaggedy line. The mic is gonna cut that out for you as you record. So this mic was chosen to make your life easier, capture the best sound possible. We have a solid state computer, meaning that there's no hard drive that makes noise. There's no fan in there either. And finding computers without fans is not actually that easy. So it will never ever make a peep. And then we also have an external drive to make sure you have plenty of space. That's also solid state or flash. And then what you don't see in here is a hard drive in the other room hooked to your network, and that's your backup drive. And that's 2 terabytes, so you'll be able to keep everything backed up every day and never have to worry about losing anything. Only thing left now is to give it a try, right?
Yeah, let's
Want to have a seat and see how it suits you?
It seemed unfair spending 3 hours a day in a classroom during summer, only to wait another 30 minutes in the parking lot. There were things I could do about that, like walk home, or tell my parents my older sister was always late to pick me up.
Oh man, y'all, I've had so much fun today. I don't know about you, but this has been an amazing experience. Christian, how do you feel about everything that we've done for you?
I feel great, and I'm so grateful, and the closet looks amazing, and I've learned so much on the business end, great tips, and then obviously sound stuff with George and the performance stuff with PJ. It's like I've gotten a whole little mini career makeover.
So before we go, PJ, what should Christian take with her back into the booth as she goes to record her next title?
Well, I think the first thing she should take back in is that Christian's already a great narrator. Even if we didn't do this, she starts in a really fantastic place. So that's wonderful right there. You got the bones, the structure is really, really good. You know what you're doing, you're a good actor. So I think some of the key things like we've talked about is the connection to the material, I think makes such a big difference. Watch out about not playing to the back row, not presenting the material, but just being in it, trusting yourself. And there's also another thing too, I think you've got a good handle on the technical aspects, punching yourself in, using equipment, being your own self-director, self-engineer, but focus on that self-directing part most of all, in that you've got to let it go.
You know, just let this stuff be real, be connected. Keep the characters real, keep yourself real. Remember the two of us on the couch, just telling one person, you know, the story, really sharing that. So yeah, you know, figure out the author's intent, the author's tone, dive in, keep it real, and you're gonna be fantastic. You already are.
Thank you.
Awesome. Now, Jeff, what else should Christian do to make sure that she's picking the right titles and that she's setting herself up for long-term success?
Well, that's exactly the way to look at it, and I think you've got a good head for the business already. Just looking at the books that you've done in your portfolio, I like to leave people with a mantra or two, for lack of a better word. One is, do the kinds of books that you want to be hired for 5 years from now. So don't look at the instant paycheck, look at the long-term gain. Will this move my career forward, or will it harm my career?
Awesome. And George, now that she's got this amazing new setup, how can she maximize her great new sound?
Really just try to eventually become comfortable with the gear and the equipment so it starts to disappear. There's new gear in there, there's new systems, some new things to learn, but once that's under your belt, you will become very comfortable. It might take a book to get really comfortable, but then the gear just needs to, the technology needs to meld into the background and disappear almost.
It's such a great point, and I think so often we forget that the performance and the situation we're in, self-engineering and self-directing, it creates an extra challenge because there's all of this technical stuff we have to master, not just using, you know, the recording software, you know, understanding your mic and proximity and all these different things. Training yourself about things like, you know, mouth noises and stomach noise and all these other technical things that technically have nothing to do with performance. But you have to master them, get as good as you can at them, and then forget about them so that you can get back to the honesty of being in the moment and really delivering a sincere, connected performance. Really important.
Well, Christian, do you feel like you have exactly what you need to get the job done for your next book?
I do. I feel like I'm set up to succeed, essentially. Like, I feel like I can do the work now and I don't have to worry about all the technical things, and I have all of you guys that I've met if I need to reach out with any questions, which I'm sure I'll do.
Absolutely.
Jeff said I could email him almost every day if I wanted.
Yeah,
So.
totally.
PJ, Jeff, George, I want to thank you guys for sharing your expertise and your time with us today. Christian, I hope you've learned some really wonderful lessons, but I also want to thank you for letting us and everybody at home come into this world and see how you are transforming your career and really making a long-term go at this. And for everybody who's watching at home, I hope we've inspired you to do something for your career today, whether you're going to take performance coaching and get closer to your material, or upgrade your sound, or take a look at your portfolio and build a long-term slate of books that you're really excited and passionate about. We thank you so much for joining us at ACX University, and we hope we'll see you again soon.